Hey, everybody. This is Sarah, and you're listening to the Medium Curious Podcast, the show that wants you to make the most out of your highs, your spiritual highs. And this is a Sunday solo, and it's just me today, and I'm talking about something that I deal with quite a bit, and I think a lot of us do without even realizing it, and that is chasing those spiritual highs or those metaphysical highs. If you've ever had a wild experience and then tried to get there, return to that, recreate it back on demand, then this episode is for you. And I'm bringing this to you because I've done this, and it's so human to crave those big signs, those goosebump moments, and have those wonderful, mind-blowing readings over and over again. But that chase can actually pull you out of your connection. And I feel like there's even spiritual FOMO, fear of missing out on magic. And I also just want to name that everything that I'm sharing with you is based on my own experience and my own perspective. And one of the most helpful things for me on my spiritual journey has been listening to other people's experiences and stories. So take what feels useful to you and then just set down whatever doesn't. Because we're all wired differently, and what lights one person up may not light you up. And that's totally okay. And that's part of what we're here to learn too. Following what speaks to us and learning who we are. And that's part of finding out who you are. That's why we're here. And part of that journey also is bumping up against doubt. And doubt happens when we start to question the signs that we're getting, and we can spiral into, am I just making that up? Is this actually real? If this is real, give me another sign. And before you know it, you're hustling for that next hit of magic, and you're not really getting the point of the whole experience, which is to let it change you, to fold it into your everyday being. So I've been on my spiritual journey for most of my 40s, and I'm getting really close to that 50s decade. I've had lots of really amazing experiences, mind-blowing actually, and it didn't all happen at once. And if it had, I don't think I'd be able to function in my everyday, day-to-day life of raising kids and working and, just lifing and humaning in general. I really believe that coming online or awakening up, or awakening, whatever you call it, has to happen at a pace that actually lets us live it, where we can integrate it and incorporate it into our everyday lives. And as I've started to wake up to this part of myself, I have needed the time to notice all of the unseen layers and to really feel that there's more going on beneath the surface, and to get clear about my own inner guidance and build that trust muscle. And this is nothing that I was going to be able to conceptualize intellectually. It had to be through lived experience. But the pull, that desire to chase the highs, is real and it's strong. And we naturally want to recreate those big, amazing experiences, spiritual or not. I think about all those nights when I went out in my 20s and partied with my friends, and some of those nights were just really, really fun. And of course, we'd try to recreate it the next time we'd go out, and we'd do everything we could do to make that magic happen again. But more often than not, those nights were just a one and done. And there was no amount of trying to recreate that magic that was going to happen again. But there's always a little letdown when you compare it to something that can only happen once in that exact specific special way. I had an experience after I'd already known that I was a medium and that I could connect with spirit. And I think that's the only reason why I didn't completely freak out, because I had already had all of these amazing experiences up until this point. I was asleep, and in the middle of the night, I woke up and I felt like I was being pulled upwards from the middle of my chest, from the center of my chest. It was like my soul was being scooped up out of my body. And somehow I knew that it was nothing to be afraid of and that I needed to just surrender and let it happen. And as I did that, I felt the presence of divine mother energy, divine feminine energy. And I don't really actually think that it matters who it was exactly. It could have been Mother Mary or Mary Magdalene. I was very into Mary Magdalene at the time, but it felt really holy and sacred. And the love that I felt was so profound and so unconditional. And I was sleeping next to my daughter, who must have been three or four, maybe even 5. And what was telepathically communicated to me in that moment, so like I got this download while this was happening. And that's how downloads often happen. It's telepathic communication. And what I received was that I was being cradled and loved and protected in the arms of the divine in the same way that I was loving and embracing and surrounding my little girl as we slept. So once you experience something like that, once you get a taste of something like that, you just want a refill. You want to taste that again. And I wanted that high again instead of trusting that it did what it needed to do. And I think that's where so many of us get hooked. We try to get back that exact moment instead of letting it change how we move going forward. And what that moment did for me, feeling that divine love, was show me what it is like to be parented by the divine. And I'd always believed in that concept, but this was the first time I actually felt it, like truly felt it in a really profound way. And it was matching the way that I was loving my daughter. So there was that side by side comparison. And so instead of trying to use all my energy trying to get back to that event, I started to let it reparent me, and I let myself receive more support, and I softened my self-talk. You know, there's so much negative self-talk that we do that we're not even aware of. And started to treat myself with tenderness and the same loving care that I felt in that embrace. And that's how I kept the experience going. And it wasn't in the fireworks. It was those tiny little decisions after that. And it also showed me, that experience, that when I let go of fear and fully surrendered to the experience, that's when the turning point happens, when the real wonder, the real miracle takes place. So speaking of fear, because I had to let go of fear in that moment, I think that's really what's underneath all of this, and this kind of the spiritual scarcity mindset. And you kind of have to get away from thinking that was the coolest thing that's ever happened and it's never going to happen again. Or what if that wasn't even real? I need more proof. I need more evidence. Because then you're suddenly bargaining and you're not receiving. You're hustling. You're hustling for more evidence. And how many of us get a sign that's so unbelievable and then immediately say to ourselves, okay, that's great and all, or hey, universe, if that's real, I need another one. And that goes on. And you just like, I need another one. Prove to me again. And actually the universe is great at doling those out over and over and over again. But what if we trusted? What if we trusted that? I've also seen this play out a lot when people get mediumship readings or intuitive readings or psychic readings. And I myself have done this. We can have such an incredible session with so much comfort and care and evidence. And then we can turn right around again and book another reading. And if the next reading doesn't have the same wow factor or the same kind of evidence, and especially if this is a mediumship reading, it can feel like we are losing our loved one all over again. And this is one of the reasons why I feel like it's suggested that people limit the number of readings they get initially when they're in really deep grief, because it can just be really hard. I do love that mediumship exists, though, because it shows us and it proves the continuation of love and consciousness. But mediumship, unfortunately, isn't the cure for grief. It can support and heal, but it can't erase the grief, even though I so wish it could. But what it does offer is an invitation into a new kind of relationship that is very real, and a new form of communication through signs and synchronicities and telepathy. And it's all transferred through that energy of love. And even though it's not physical, and that's the part that we miss the most, it is full of potential and it is full of hope. And it's the beginning of this new relationship that requires nurturing and learning how to not chase it, and learning how to notice it and to show up for it in a quiet way, how to receive it, and how to trust that it's there even though it's quiet. And this all leaves me with a really important question, the important question of how do we, instead of endlessly trying to recreate the magic, how do we work with what we've already experienced, what we've already been given? How do we integrate these experiences so that they shape the way we move going forward, the way we grieve, the way we love, and the way we co-create? And I think the first thing that we can do is awareness. Just notice, just notice when you're chasing it, and then beat yourself up. No, never do that. Just kidding. Never beat yourself up. That's where compassion comes in. It's the chance to lavish our little lovey selves with so much tenderness and grace. Just like that night I was cradling my daughter and felt surrounded by love, the love of the divine. We have to do that for ourselves. We have to learn how to do that for ourselves, because we're all just little humans looking for reassurance and comfort. And instead of trying to recreate that last big spiritual moment, what if we just open ourselves up to the possibility of something new or something different? And that could be really exciting. I know that I've shared this story here before, but I'm going to tell it again because I come back to it quite often. And actually, that's one of the ways that we can integrate these experiences. We revisit them and let the message keep working on us. My family took a trip to England to visit my husband's side of the family, and we stopped at Stonehenge as we were driving from one end of the country to the other. And I really wanted to, I was expecting some crazy mystical something to happen. I think I was convinced that I was going to touch a rock and be pulled through a portal into an episode of Outlander. Do you guys remember that show? So good. Instead, it was so hot. It was blazing hot. It was that really hot summer where like the tarmac at Heathrow was melting. So I was there with my family, and the line was so long to get on the bus to go to the Stones. So we decided to walk the mile, and my daughter, she was probably about 5 at the time, and she needed to be carried. And the sky was completely blue and the sun was so bright. And I just remember wishing for one tiny cloud to cover the sun and give us some relief. And sure enough, when we got there, a little cloud moved in and hovered over the sun the entire time we were at the site, for which I was beyond grateful and delighted. And I was just letting the gratitude flow because we got this pocket of shade and this relief from the heat. And so we were able to enjoy ourselves while we were there. But I still didn't have like some crazy mystical experience. So we wisely decided to take the bus back to the parking lot, and while we were on the bus, I tuned into my guides and I asked, what do I need to know about Stonehenge? And what I heard in my mind's, it's not my mind's eye. Like I heard it, I guess I heard it telepathically. I heard create something new. And then the download came, which was Stonehenge was the newest technology, and it was a cutting edge way to track time and the lunar year, like thousands of years ago. But instead of obsessing over what had been created in the past, the invitation was to feel excitement and hopefulness for what can be created now and what can be experienced now. And that's what we're all here to do. So that desire that we have to create and to experience and to reach for something amazing, it's good. It's not bad. It's actually necessary for us to evolve and to create. And it's the shift from trying to recreate the old magic to being available for the new next thing that wants to come through that's really important. So when we have these big spiritual epiphanies, these big metaphysical experiences, let it fuel you. Let it fill you up. Let them give you hope. Let it give you inspiration. And take a snapshot. Just cement it in your being in that moment. Because we're so good at doing that with the uncomfortable feelings. We lock in how bad something feels, and it's a self-protective mechanism. And that's just so we know how to avoid something bad happening the next time, and so that we can prepare ourselves, brace ourselves for the unthinkable or something that's unpleasant even. But what if we did that with amazing feelings too? What if we really relished in them in the moment? What if we really luxuriated in them, rolled around in them a little, and let them really soak into your beingness? And if you can go back to those moments, the memory of those, they belong to you. They're integrated into your being. And those memories can raise your vibration. They can bring back the feeling of that experience later on. And we all know what becomes possible when our vibration raises. We come into closer alignment with spirit, and we tend to draw in more and more of those miracles. And the flip side of that is we can drop into lack or need and that chasing feeling again. And that energy weighs down our system, and it makes it much harder to connect. That's that connection that we're longing for gets much harder. So what we're really talking about here is an ongoing relationship. And relationships can be beautiful and also kind of tricky. And if you're in a new relationship with somebody, whether it's like a friend or a partner or even a colleague, and if it was fireworks all the time with no quiet in between, you'd burn out really, really quickly. And it's the same with spirit. If we expect constant fireworks, we miss out on the sweetness of that everyday connection. Part of me developing that relationship has looked like creating more space in my day-to-day life. And that has included becoming more aware of my thoughts, which has meant a simple meditation practice and other things like putting aside alcohol. And there's something that I've just recently become really aware of, and I haven't taken accountability for this yet, but I need to. And it's going to be hard. I really need to slow the scroll on my phone because it's a problem. It takes up a lot of my mental space. And I find myself using my phone to soothe myself or to numb myself. And I'm not saying everybody needs to skip all the pleasures in life and stop having fun. This was just what I needed to do, and I still need to do. And I notice how much spaciousness it creates in my life. And another thing, I really noticed was I started being aware of all the extra drama in my life, like those codependent tendencies of needing to be involved, to fix, to micromanage what's happening in the lives of the people that I hold so dear and that I love so much. And I'm not going to go into a lecture on codependency here, but I can say this. I have really, as I've deepened my relationship, my need to meddle in or rescue other people's lives has begun to soften. And as I've started to trust my own guidance, I trust in the guidance that my loved ones are receiving from their guides and their own inner knowing. And as I've created this space in my everyday life, the spaciousness, my life has been so enriched. And it's also increased my capacity for more metaphysical experiences. Remember how I said at the beginning that if I had been hit with all that energy and juiciness that I've received slowly over the past 10 years all at once, I would short circuit? Well, letting this come online slowly has allowed me to have deeper, more expansive experiences. And part of developing this relationship is to become more aware also of the fact that we don't have to try to be spiritual. Everyone is spiritual by nature. We are spirit. We're already whole and complete as spirit, and we're not something that needs to be fixed or finished. We are here for the experience of being human, and we're doing it. We're completely doing it. And it's this awareness of wholeness that brings me peace and gives me that feeling of spaciousness. And from that spaciousness, we're actually able to take in more of the spiritual and metaphysical experiences and more of the synchronicities and more of the magic when we're not chasing a version of ourselves we have to become. And we're just remembering who we already are, which is unlimited and infinite and loved. So whether it's a plant medicine journey or a really real vivid dream or a mind-blowing reading or even a real phenomenal goosebump sign, the point isn't how high we can go in that moment. It's not about the moment. It's about how we let it reshape the way we live, how we let it move us and impact us. And we can always draw on those experiences rather than having to repeat it, because there will always be more experiences. I promise, always. There will always be more. And just to be clear, there is nothing wrong with wanting big, beautiful spiritual experiences. That desire is so human and so understandable, and it's essential to making things happen in this world. So I'm going to close with a bit of channeled writing that came through for me on this topic, I think a couple of years ago now, but it really helped me reframe the chase. Waiting, desire, longing. Do these make you feel uneasy? Embrace them with open arms, for when you fill with curiosity, these qualities become satiated in a way that brings far greater fulfillment than had you not experienced them. Notice these longings, make friends with these desires. Confront the waiting with ease and grace, for when your wants are satisfied, you will have much to be truly grateful for. This is the human nature of duality, and it can result in joy. Okay, dear ones, thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for sticking around. Sending you lots of love, and may you have so many wonderful experiences. And we'll be back with, and I don't know what we'll be back with, but we'll be back. Okay. Lots of love to you. Bye. Very Soul is our sponsor for Medium Curious. Jane and I are both Very Soul mediums.
Oh, yes, we are. Verysoul.com, y'all. Inspired by spirit, guided by love, and brought to life by mediums.